Welcome to another episode of TarValon Talks. This episode is our second installment on minor characters from the Wheel of Time. I'm Thad, and today I'm joined by Adolla and Dorian, as we have each chosen a member of the supporting cast throughout the main series. Fair warning, and I feel like this is a very fair warning for any episode these days, but this episode will include spoilers, so you are warned now. Go finish reading the books before you listen into this, because you may hear something you don't want to hear. So, Dorian, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Thad.
Well, hold on. I have to go hit pause right away. I haven't actually finished the series.
Oh.
See y'all in 6 months.
You're gonna learn some stuff tonight, then.
Oh, I maybe should have picked a different character.
No, it's all right. I feel like this is only my second time hosting. Thank you for having me. And I am spoilered all to hell. There's a period in my life where I thought I would never read another Wheel of Time book. I demanded spoilers from all of my friends. And I'm so glad to be here now enjoying the book series with them once again.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you have to spoil yourself to really get into a thing.
Sometimes knowing how it ends makes it easier. Like, sometimes.
Yeah, you hit that like, oh, this happens. Now I got to find out how this happened.
Oh, yeah. The Wheel of Time is full of these moments that are, it's like, wow, that sounds really cool. Without any context, I could not begin to imagine what that means, how we got there.
Mm-hmm.
We can never forget the time that Elaine was making out with Shadar Haran. That'll go down forever.
You heard it here, folks.
Spoilers.
Now, the real spoilers are the heavy petting, and then the musical number.
Yeah, that was in the extended edition.
Oh, God.
Like, this is off topic, and it might get cut, but speaking of the musical edition, Donald Finn is playing Orpheus in the London production of Hadestown.
Donald Finn's a triple threat. Oh, my.
Uh-huh. And now I need Matt to do a musical number. Because his voice is beautiful. Like, there's previews out there.
It's ripe for Teleran Riyadh.
Well, if we ever get a Portal Stone episode, maybe we can see that.
Maybe.
Oh, that would be too good to have one of Matt's Portal Stone moments be him on stage at Hadestown. It was so weird. There was there was no fourth wall, only 3 walls.
We get a musical number about him in the Heart of the Stone, about how he's out of place and out of time.
Oh, no. I have not seen Hadestown, but I am a huge fan of the Hades video game, which has some of the most beautiful music, totally undeserving of video games. Orpheus prominently featured, so now I'm imagining those songs.
If you know the story of Orpheus and Eurydice,
oh yeah,
it's basically that story, and it ends exactly how you think it ends.
Spoilers for this 3,000-year-old myth.
Yes, I'm sorry. They don't make it. He turned around. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you haven't read it now, you had 3,000 years.
That is an experience I had with far afield, but perhaps we can pivot back from how many mythological references there are in the Wheel of Time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Although I don't know, especially because this is Norse myth, and Matt is Odin in so many ways.
He is 100% Odin.
Yeah. I don't know who Tyr is. Sorry, not Tyr, Balder. Balder features prominently in the new God of War games.
He's got 3 games, Baldur's Gate.
Well, so I was watching my friend play this in our apartment, my old roommate, and I was like, oh, mistletoe arrows? You're going to need those to kill Balder later. And he turned around, he threw the controller in and said, spoilers. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. The Pro Set has been around for 3,000 years.
I guess you were one of today's lucky 10,000.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe we should get back on topic.
So yeah, let's start out. We've done this episode before, and Dorian, why don't we start with you? Who is your character, minor character, secondary character, tertiary character of choice from the Wheel of Time?
Now, this is very relevant to where I am in my reread, where I am just about to catch up to where I originally stopped reading the series and said, I'll wait and then never picked it back up until very recently. So I have just finished Shadow Rising for the second time in my life. I've read the first 3 books maybe 4 or 5 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I have never read past book 7. My memory's a little hazy because I read this in high school, but that definitely colored my choice, having just read Dragon Reborn, or now Shadow Rising. So I had Bail Damon on my short list of secondary characters. I had Ganon, our Sanchan, eventual turncoat, spoilers. But eventually I settled on Laras, Mistress of the Kitchens for the White Tower, who I adore. I don't... she's such a treat. And it wasn't a character I was like looking forward to in the show because she's really very forgettable in the grand scheme of things. I mean, for a series that has hundreds of secondary characters and a massive supporting cast, Laras is her roles are pivotal at the exact right moments, and then she ceases to exist, which to me is a great secondary character.
It's a MacGuffin.
There to service the plot?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'll ask, how much do you two remember? Like, what's the first thing you can think of related to this very specific...
I have an image of her in my head, and that's about it.
Paint me a word picture, doll.
Just the older, matronly, slightly overweight woman with a spoon in one hand and an apron and just bossing people around the kitchen, and that's about all. That's the image I have.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Robert Jordan really laid it in that she was extremely fat for being the kitchen master, basically. Like, all I can remember is the descriptions of her. She had like 2 double chins, and she was a very heavy set woman kind of thing. And the spoon too. Also, that she was very self-absorbed into herself.
Now, that is the funny part is Robert Jordan makes a very clear point of, yes, this is a heavy set woman. The words heavy set are used several times, but also that nobody ever sees her eating.
Huh.
Yeah. I guess that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a point is made of this that she never uses that spoon to taste anything.
Just to beat people.
Well, you have hit on what my, like, it's like, oh my God, I know this character. And you know, she has some pivotal roles. I don't know how much we want to talk about like these characters' roles in the books as we talk about them.
I think it's important to talk about why they're such good characters.
I mean, you talk about saving the tower from itself.
Yeah.
And you know, even when she's introduced, we really don't get a favorable picture of Laras. There's some what is definitely in any estimation, some fat-phobic references made, which are not cool. Sorry, Robert. I know, it was a while back, but...
You got to remember, though, it's very much a product of its time kind of thing. So that was kind of an acceptable thing at the time, but, things change.
Yeah, then Paul Blart got made, and we were like, ooh, yeah, this is definitely not something you can just fall back on. Anyway, that's a different podcast.
I'm not even going to ask.
Paul Blart Mall
I know what it is.
Oh, God.
I don't need to go there.
Well, what I like about Laras is that even in the span of what is really only 2 books, our introduction to her is she's Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine's tormentor. She is swatting them with the spoon. She is in charge of their punishment. The closest we get to empathy from her early on is she refuses to participate in breaking anyone's spirit. And that's interesting to me. It's very interesting framing. And I read in a lot here of Jordan's own experiences in the military.
Honestly, that really makes sense.
Chores, especially demeaning chores and kitchen punishments, those are how you not, there's something to be said for how the military is about breaking people down and getting them to build and then building them back up to work as a cohesive unit. Again, that's another podcast. But that's definitely where I read this. And it's also showing us that I think this is where we get a lot of the tower is really not at its best. Loras is not introduced to us at its best. She is a symptom of an overarching problem at the White Tower, which is that you've got some corruption going on just in like how the servants are acting. You have this really clear problem with how the hierarchy from novice to Aes Sedai has become a tool for mistreating people. And all of that comes out over the course of the next 3 books, but Loras is fighting against it very, very quickly. She frees Suan, she frees Min, and she gets them the hell out of there. And she does it all under Elida's nose.
Yeah.
Avoiding suspicion the whole damn time. No one ever thinks, oh, this woman couldn't possibly have...
That's why I love it so much. Is she's so unsuspecting as a character that everybody goes, she's just the fat kitchen master. What's she going to do? And she basically saves a lot of the major characters by doing this.
I think that I mean, not to discredit her, because she definitely is, more clever than they're giving her credit for. But it's also speaks to the arrogance of the Aes Sedai in the tower, that they think they're better than everybody. And they're just going to discount this woman as being stupid because she is not an Aes Sedai. She doesn't have the power. She's not going to accomplish anything. And therefore, she's not worth their attention.
Precisely that.
And she's very pivotal in undermining their plot, like, to completely split. Like, they split the tower, but if these people had not escaped, then their downfall wouldn't have come the way it did.
Yeah. And largely unprompted, she then does the same thing for Egwene 3 books later. Again, this is where I've shown my weakness here. I know the course of these events, but...
I am terrible at remembering which book is which.
Look, this is a 15-book series. I don't expect anybody to ever remember anything with any, like, accurate certainty.
15? Wow. I know I've read at least 20 books. Hold on. There's a problem with my filing system here.
It's just because you've read 4 of them 5 times.
How did these Brandon Sanderson books get mixed in here? That's a filing problem on my part. I'm sorry. Well, so I'll close my, because I didn't write too many notes here, but I have like, oh, Loras would totally be the final girl in a horror story set at the White Tower. Some Min and Suan briefly allude to this mysterious backstory she has that never expounded upon. Another thing I think makes a great secondary character.
Yeah.
You can very quickly learn too much about a very compelling character who has not a lot written out about them.
Yeah. Another thing that came to mind, and this is in the series, that's driven home that you can't trust a skinny cook or a skinny innkeeper.
Yes!
Yeah.
You can trust her because she's not skinny.
So this is going to be my pivot, and this is my question on this before we go on to another character, as I don't want to take the whole time. We've alluded to how she saves Suan and her keeper from captivity after they've been stilled. Do you either of you remember exactly how that goes down?
I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
Dad?
I'm drawing a blank currently.
So this is sticking in my mind because I just finished this book.
Mm-hmm.
Suan comes out, and the first thing she notices is like, oh, they only left one guard? That's arrogant, thinking that we're useless now that we can't channel anymore. And then she notices the guard is completely unconscious. And her first thought is, what happened here? There's no food. There's no wine. He hasn't been, drugged or drunk into a stupor. So how does Loras completely incapacitate this guard on her own? And I've come up with 3 potential solutions to this problem. That wooden spoon. You all have wooden spoons in your kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the size and shape and general weight of a wooden spoon that you need to stir a large cooking cauldron.
It's basically a club.
And that's something she's been using to hit the novices with. Let's not forget.
So here's something to undermine that a little bit is I'm looking in the companion right now under Loras.
Mhm.
And it specifically says that when she helped free Min and Swan and Lean from the tower, she sent the guards food and drink.
That's her alibi.
Yeah.
How crafty is this? She sends the guards food and drink afterward because that buys them an hour and gives her an alibi. Because then she comes around and is like, "Oh, I sent the guards food and drink, and the serving maids came back and they said they were unconscious."
There was something in that food and wine, right?
I don't know. Did they get the food before? Because the implication is that they never ate anything. That's when Elida gets alerted that it's happened, is they've just been sent their food and drink. So I think she either brained this guy. Yeah. Swan notes he's not wearing his helmet. He's supposed to be. He's a guard. Slipshod dark friends.
That wooden spoon is made of pretty hefty wood, right?
Well, the other thing I imagine is, Min has something of like a reverse foretelling about her, like Laura's wild years as a beauty in somewhere. We don't get much from it, but there's some phrase, and I'm not holding the book in front of me, that implies to me that Loras lifted this man, pinned him to the wall, and throttled him.
Honestly, I could see that with Loras.
We are given the description. She's a heavy-set woman. She's taller than most of the women. She towers over the kitchen. It's not that we have too many tall Aes Sedai, but especially someone who was an adventurer in their youth, winds up at the White Tower, survives all these years.
I do remember that she was in the Aiel War, or not that she was directly involved in the Aiel War, but she did stuff during the Aiel War.
Yeah.
Maybe she was a spy. Oh my God, was she Julia Child?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I think you just put something to get. Robert Jordan had to have been a Julia Child fan. I don't know enough about Julia Child to make a full connection here, but
she was a spy. Like, she worked for the CIA, and her husband was a diplomat, so she was in France, and she learned cooking, but she also worked with the CIA.
You can draw other parallels to the White Tower and the CIA. It's not that far afield. Well, and more MI6, but wow, doll, I think you just figured something out.
I think she.
Well, I don't know how much weight that gives to my third explanation for how she rendered this guard unconscious, which is that she just.
Julia Child is very tall, very big, and she could assume that she had some training. I don't know.
Well, that is of course the third option, is if you're a spy and you're dealing with a lone guard, there's always the option of seducing him.
Seduced him with that spoon. You know where the spoon's going to go if you don't let him go?
I'd not.
I was going more in the direction as like, well, he's unconscious on the floor. How did this happen? No, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Worry about it. Adjust smock.
So, oh Lord, that went off the rails.
and on that note.
Do you want to go next, Thad, or do you want me to go?
You can go ahead.
Okay. So my choice, I was debating because I wanted to do several of the kinswomen, but I settled on Sumiko. Sumiko met the Wonder Girls in Ebudar, hunting for the Bowl of the Winds. She was posing as a wise woman in Ebudar with her red belt, and I can't remember now how they actually met her, but she ends up helping them find it, and then they discover that she can channel, because she thinks they're runaways, and she takes them to the kin. And one of the things that stood out to me about Sumiko is that she can out-heal Nynaeve, and Nynaeve is very jealous about that. But I think the kin are very interesting as a concept. They're all women who were, and it goes back in a lot of ways to the arrogance of the White Tower, how these women have failed out of the tower. And it's not because they weren't capable of doing things. It was because they didn't pass the arbitrary limits set by the Aes Sedai. So either some of them aren't that strong and were able to do the weaves necessary to pass the test, or some of them just chickened out and ran away. But they've been living for hundreds of years, and they have their own society and their own hierarchy based on what they think the Aes Sedai would have had in their hierarchy based on what they knew as a novice, which is not at all what actually the Aes Sedai do, but they all go by age. And this is how we find out that these women are much older than any Aes Sedai.
I know it's crazy because you think the Aes Sedai are already really old because we know Moraine is she's 70, 80 something.
She's 70 or 80, and like Sumiko is 300 years old.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, we learned that Cat Swan is also roughly in that age range as well.
Yeah, she's close to it.
But we learned some of these kinswomen are just incredibly aged.
Yeah.
Compared to a lot of the Aes Sedai that we see. So.
Yeah. But I love that the way she talks to Nynaeve about healing, and she calls her weaves
amateur, basically.
Amateur. Yeah, you're an amateur. Nynaeve is just
fuming,
tugging that braid.
This is definitely in the gap in my book knowledge.
Probably. Have you got to the Bowl of Winds?
I've read through it once, but that was my very first read of Wheel of Time ever.
Okay. I thought this is probably close to the end of where you would have gotten.
Mm-hmm. It's the amateurish line sparked something in me too, which is that doesn't she also criticize Nynaeve as being not exactly her bedside manner, but that Nynaeve's way of healing is to reach in and be I will force you to live.
Yeah.
Yeah, more or less.
I mean, that's Nynaeve.
Yeah, Sumiko was way more nuanced about it.
Yeah, she learns some of the weaves from the wise women in the Ale Waste, as well as learning the weaves from the tower. And she had her own healing practices, but they were so much more advanced and more nuanced. The kinfolk are given the choice. They can go back. And Egwene has a plan to let Aes Sedai retire into the kinsfolk, or they can come back to the tower and try to become Aes Sedai again. And Sumiko is one of the ones that decides to go back because she wants to be a yellow Aes Sedai. And I can see her changing the function of the Yellow Aja away from their set in stone practices of healing into something more nuanced and maybe even more advanced than, she's got a couple more 100 years to live and she can teach more people.
We've hit twice now upon how the arrogance and the just supremacist nature of the White Tower when we're introduced to them is, and you really get this sense of we're seeing them at their worst.
Yeah.
They say it explicitly a couple of times. There are fewer Aes Sedai. They're not as strong as they were. It has always been interesting to me, how much of that do we read into the machinations of the Black Aja?
I think there's a mixture of the Black Aja stirring up natural divisions and natural inclinations within the tower. But there's a lot of arrogance in and of themselves. Elida definitely was influenced by the Black Aja, but she wasn't black.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though everybody wanted to think her to be black.
Yeah.
She gave all of that kind of arrogance that she was without, saying it out loud.
Yeah.
All I can remember of Sumiko is two specific things. One of them is that when she helped Mat catch the golem. And then the other one was they were basically carting her around via waygates during the last battle to do all of the healing because she was too good at it.
Yeah, she was just a one-woman healing machine. And she probably will revolutionize the Yellow Aja after the end of the series.
An ambulance service.
Yeah.
Again, getting back to Robert Jordan's, fast track of military history and science.
Yeah, I mean, that military history is responsible for a lot of the medical advances we had in the 20th century.
Absolutely. That does raise one of my very favorite quotes from Sumiko breaking all the rules here, not just in her incredible talent for healing and the time she's taken to develop it. That's a great thread with her as well to bring out, is that it's not just that she has a talent for healing. Nynaeve has a talent for healing. It's the time she has had to develop it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a 50-year head start, or her potential is much higher, but it would be for nothing if it weren't for Sumiko's role in the kin and that wasted potential that the tower just...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the tower saw her as insignificant, but instead she went and became a local wise woman and learned these nuanced ways of healing people in the kin that she wouldn't have learned in the tower because the tower was too rigid in their ways to stoop so low as to heal people of their sniffles and stuff in a village outside of Ebadar.
Oh, you mean viruses?
What? What are viruses?
It's just bacterial infections, that's all.
How did they forget virology? That's nuts to me.
And lost everything.
Look, the breaking of the world does a lot of things, all right?
Come on.
Think of what knowledge did we lose when the Library of Alexandria burned down?
Not that much.
How do we know?
Because the Irish saved civilization by writing it all down, even though they couldn't read.
Then they invented liquor, and
How old were you when you learned that the Irish potato famine wasn't a natural disaster, but just England stealing their food?
I was about 30.
Anyway, it does conjure to mind one of my absolute favorite Wheel of Time memes, since the kin are here, and it's someone has properly cropped Moiraine, Elaine, and Egwene talking to I almost called them the Wind Talkers, but that was the name for the radio men in World War II.
Uh-huh.
For the U.S. The sea folks. I know. Why are we like this? But it's they're talking about the wise. They're confronting the wise women, and then the sea folks. Windfinders. Thank you. And Moiraine is just full hands on her hips, like, are there any other secret societies of women channel? Just so I'm clear. And it's the kid just like off in the corner, like hiding their face, like, oh, don't look over here. You're not seeing us. We're not.
The other thing, like, it is stated, like, they do learn later that the tower did know that the kin existed. What they didn't know is the extent to which they existed. They just thought there were a handful of women.
Yeah, it was just like a small, collection of women that got together after getting rejected. They didn't realize the extensive network that formed from this.
How extensive and how old they were.
All I could think of is just like the kin. You could have these really cool like cottage industries, like just a little bit of an air weave with a little bit of a fire weave. You can now make glass blowing. Yeah, you just revolutionized glass blowing for your village.
I imagine that is kind of what they were doing.
Yeah, it's like, I can weave, water and air, and I'm just going to fabricate the greatest lace for these Taraboners in their silks. Well, okay, now I've invented lingerie, but that's, we don't have to dwell.
If we have something like the Illuminators and how they protect their secrets, there is most likely a lot of this going on behind the shroud with certain industries.
Yeah.
And the Illuminators are one of those factions we really don't get to see much behind the curtain, in part because of how quickly they get. But that seems to me like a perfect refuge for the kin, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
The Illuminators don't even have to be clued in on it, especially because aren't they misogynist?
Yeah.
They're very insular.
They're protective of their secrets more than they are.
Yeah. They're also very matrilineal or patrilineal. So it's like, it would be hard for the kin to sneak in unless they came from the Illuminators to begin with.
Mm.
I mean, Eludra's story alone should show proof of that.
Yeah.
Because she got ousted after, Rand and Matt accidentally blew up a fireworks factory that they had. And they blamed it on her. And she's just like, I'll show you, as she's shaking her fist at them. And then we get cannons later on in the series, thanks to it.
Yeah. I didn't know how much to read into that. The Illuminators were just like, but in my own mind, I was just like, oh yeah, of course they're a bunch of racist or a bunch of misogynist assholes.
I never got the sense that they were misogynist.
I never got that. Just that they were so secretive, and it kind of didn't matter. Because yeah. But I think we've kind of strayed a little bit too far from.
Yeah.
What do you mean? She's not your favorite character, secondary character, Thad?
Who, Eludra?
Yeah.
Oh, she is one of my favorites. Of the secondary characters, but she's not my choice for this episode.
Wait. Let me see if I can guess. Let me just pull up my list here. I have...
Pull up your list, and we'll get there.
2,500 names to run through.
Easy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But Doll, do you have any final thoughts about Sumiko before we continue on?
I think we covered them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just she doesn't have that much of a role, but it's a very interesting one.
She doesn't, but it's very impactful at the same time.
It is a very impactful role, and it's impactful for that extends past the narrative of the books. So Thad, who is your pick? I do be thinking I know who it is.
I do be thinking who. Obviously, if you can't pick it up on that hint alone, I do be. It's good old Bail Domon, and I don't think I can do Bail Domon without
Perfect.
My man, the timing with which you cracked that can was
cracking a cold one for Bail Domon.
Absolute magic.
Smuggler extraordinaire. Or, as he would say, I'm a traitor, not a smuggler.
Right.
But we all know he is a smuggler at heart, right? We meet Bail Domon very, very early in the series when we have the first fracture of the party, of the main ensemble cast, when they are escaping Shadar Logoth, where Matt has stolen the dagger and Rand and Matt have escaped. They have found themselves down the river. They find themselves onto a boat, and who do it be but old Bail Domon, the Illionaire. I always think of, when I think of Bail Domon, the sea captain from The Simpsons.
Does he have a name?
He does, and I can't think of what it's called.
I'm not a big enough Simpsons fan to know it.
I think it's Seamus or Seamus or something like that.
Seamus would be right. Oh, man.
But the way that the sea captain speaks in The Simpsons with that, obvious sailor tilt to his language is always how I have imagined Bail Domon. Because that's the vernacular that we get when he speaks, because, the I do be. But as a secondary character, he is integral to several plot points in the story, right? First off, he takes Matt, Rand, and Tom to Whitebridge via his boat. Secondarily, he gets captured by the Shan-Chan. They learn of Quain Dr because of him. Or not, they don't learn of it, but, he gives them one of the seals of the Dark Lord's prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
He helps Min, he helps Elaine, he helps Nynaeve and Egwene escape on their ship when they're leaving Falm, because he kind of felt bad about leaving them to their fate. So he helps them leave.
Again, having just reread Shadow Rising, he doesn't go there's not a page that, there's not a chapter that Domon's not in Tanchico, where he doesn't say, it's like, oh, it's going to be Falm all over again. What have I gotten myself into? You girls need more guards. Take my sailors.
Bail the entire time is like, why am I here? What am I doing here? Why am I here?
I'm trying to run away from history, and it keeps following me everywhere I go.
The man's a hopeless romantic, though.
Is this clearly that one of the girls is actually Ta'Veren and they keep pulling him to where he needs to be? Because it's always the girls that he's saving, right?
It's 10,000% that. You see exactly the same thing when Tom, Matt, and Rand get rescued. It's beat for beat that for Elaine and Nynaeve and Egwene at two separate points in the books. He even talks about leaving. This is the same book where Matt has been so specific when they start out in Tyr about gosh, I'd like to leave, but something keeps pulling me back in. He starts blaming Rand that there's a kitchen maid who wants to keep making out with him. And he's like, hi, I'd leave, but boy, is that kitchen wench real easy. She is. Man. And Bale's the exact same things happen. We don't get his internal thing. He's not, he's not noncing on Elaine or Nynaeve, but it's the same thing. He's like, I should leave. I should go. I could retire a wealthy man. I could go anywhere I want. I've got a ship. I've got men. I've got gold. And he stays.
But he's not.
He stays for Elaine and Nynaeve.
Oh, well, he does stay for that one, but he's not actually staying most of the time because he fled Falm, went to the other side of the continent, clear to the other side of the continent, and got stuck in it again.
He gets captured by the Shan-Chan. He gets sold off as a slave again, and who is our like main Shan Chan, like, you know, not like she's basically a traitor
Mm-hmm.
because you know, we run into her several times ahead of time, and then when what was it? I think it was the first time that they meet again is when Bail Domon brings information on the Black Aja to Nynaeve and Egwene, and then he sees her and he goes, "Wait a second, you're Shan Chan," and she's just like, "Uh-oh."
It's like the fourth or fifth time she's been befriending Elaine and Nynaeve. They're like, "Oh, thank God, a woman we can talk to, and we don't. It's not Julian, Tom, and Bale."
Mm-hmm.
Or they're pretty down on Rendra too, the innkeeper, who's just like who's flirting's the wrong word for it, but she just is just like, "Oh, Nynaeve, you'd look lovely in this Tarabonner gown. You'd look lovely in this other Tarabonner gown." And I just assume the necklines are getting deeper and deeper as they go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at the point that Bale gains the possession of the Domination Band to go and drop it in the ocean and sink it off, you know, he gets again captured by Shan Chan and put up for sale, and Again buys him. So he becomes property at that point.
Buys him with the. I mean, this is Bale, but Again, I brought her up. You're bringing her up. Honorable mention to Again.
Yeah.
Especially for ultimately becoming I'm going to say allied collaborator to keep things in the military history sphere.
She gets outcast from Shantan, so she becomes Again shipless because she is a traitor to the Shan Chan Empire at this point.
You gotta betray the Shan Chan, you know?
Right? You know, later on in the series, we see Bale bails out Matt by rescuing him from Ibu Dar. He tries to save... he saves Again again after Rena stabs her. Which book was that? Was that Crossroads to Twilight or Knife of Dreams? I want to say it was Knife of Dreams. Because the Crossroads to Twilight was a lot of Matt points of view at that point. I mean, he marries her. So, you know, I guess we can include Again in that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the very first time they meet, she wrestles him to the deck of his own ship. And it reminds me of one of those circumstances where it's just like, confronted with a woman who can defeat me in hand-to-hand combat, I have no choice. There's just a...
I guess I'm just in love with her.
Yeah, I guess so.
But then we get the inverse of that in Tanchiko, because you alluded to the scene where he's like, you're Shan Chan. He just levels her, and she gets up, and now she's the one in a hold, and she's surprised, and we get it from her perspective. She's like, I did not think he was that good after I beat him that one time. And Bale's excuse is like, yeah, because you weren't about to set my ship on fire with a tamale. And I wasn't surrounded by men with swords.
And despite all of this, Bail Domon, despite being a traitor, a smuggler, a marrier of traitor Shan Chan, he has a soup kitchen for the poor in Tanchiko.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, he does. Stand-up guy.
How can you not love a man who doesn't want to be where he currently wants to be, but he always finds himself embroiled in the current world drama? There's just nothing to hate about this man.
What's the common theme in all of our supporting characters? They are some of the most capable people in this series.
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting their due. It's just that, you know, they're not main cast. You know, sorry, we can't all be the dragon. We can't all be the dragon's companions.
They're interesting characters that only exist to further the plot, but they're still well thought out, interesting, fleshed out characters that, you know, you can imagine have a life outside of the stuff that happening around them and to them.
Sumiko, especially 300 years as a healer. How many lives has she saved? That's generations of people who will.
Yeah, she's probably healed generations of families that she's helped give birth to and healed and fed and like, I think they move around to avoid being noticed when people start questioning how the person that helped me when I was a kid is now helping my grandchildren and doesn't look any older.
That is the problem with people living longer under your care, yeah, is that they now they're alive longer to notice, like, hey, wait a second.
Yeah. But yeah, like imagine had she been in one place, it would have been generations upon generations.
Oh, even as a wandering doctor, I mean, that's changes regions. You know, you talk about that was part of the recovery post World War II for France and the Rhineland.
Mm-hmm.
The slightly unsavory joke about Sumeko that reminded me was I was about to call her a medic when we talked about her heroic efforts at the last battle, and then I was reminded of a very old joke, which is that the medic, someone calls the medic Doc from the unit, and the medic response, "I'm not really comfortable being called that. You know, I'm a doc. I'm not a doctor." And the response is, "Well, what's the difference?" It's like, well, doctors heal people. Sumeko heals people. Medics just comfort them while they die.
Oh no.
Oh, jeez. That's rough, man.
I mean, military humor. I don't know what to tell you. I should clarify. I am not a service member. I know some folks. I really need. I need Alexa on here to make these jokes.
That is very, very dark. So Bela was one of the first secondary characters where even as a teenager, I was like, yes, I like this guy a lot. He's very charismatic, even though he very clearly does not want to be here, which is seemingly my daily mantra on everything. I don't want to be here. I want to be at home.
But now that I'm here, I'm going to do a damn good job.
Yeah.
He's sort of the embodiment of why the curse "May you live in interesting times" is a curse, because it's too interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yes. Entirely too interesting for my tastes.
I had to pull this quote up on Bail Domon, but I liked it a lot. And it was someone else, Rendra, saying to Elaine, "You could donate to Bail Domon's kitchen. The man avoids all of the taxes, yet he taxes himself. For each crown he gives as the bribe, he gives 2 for the soup and the bread of the poor. He even has talked me into giving, and I pay my taxes."
Oh, what a smoothie.
He's a smooth operator.
Oh, yeah. Now, you mentioned the sea captain. I will admit, and it's definitely colored by when I started the books, and as we noted, Bail Domon, book 1, right there at the beginning. Not everyone can say that. I pictured Jeffrey Rush because Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
I was going to say the Pirates of the Caribbean. That was definitely what I pictured.
Especially with the accent.
Mm-hmm.
You best start believing in the age of legends. You're in one.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see Barbossa as kind of a Bale, but I think it was less of a Barbossa. Who was that guy? He was the first mate to Captain Sparrow in a lot of the movies. He reminded me.
Oh, yeah, the superstitious guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The one that says parlay.
That's a much better fit. What's his name? It's Higgs, isn't it?
He's either Higgs or Higgs is the one that he's always with. I can't remember now.
Yeah, when he gets splashed with the water,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's bad luck to wake him in.
No, I'm thinking of Gibbs from the movies.
Gibbs, that's what it. Not Higgs.
Yes.
Gibbs.
He's kind of who I imagine more of a Bail Domon character, because he's like, I'm here to do the job. I don't really want to be here, but I am here for you.
He's a tried and true sailor. He's good at it. Much better comparison because doesn't have the same problem with unprovoked violence that Barbossa does. You know, definitely what separates them as pirates, good guy, bad guy. You mentioned the sea captain as well. Doll, do you have a casting for Sumeko?
I can't remember enough of what she looks like. That's one of those where she could be just about anybody. It's more about the attitude than what she looks like.
I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head immediately for Sumeko.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I guess we can kind of wrap it up there with Bale. I really enjoy his character. Probably one of the top tier secondary characters for me personally, because he's literally there from start to finish. And we get a lot of characterization with him, which, we get a lot of characterization with. There's like 200 plus unique points of view in this game, and not in this game, but in this book series, with even more that we never get more than, a paragraph with. So it's just.
My partner was appalled when I told her I was on the 6th character perspective. who wasn't one of the main cast introduced in the first book in book 5.
That's about par for the course.
Bail Damon does also have my absolute favorite meme from the Wheel of Time canon, which is, main characters need an exit? Time to bail, Damon.
All right. Okay.
No, I heard Tad with that
That
one.
was just ouch.
All right. Well, if no one has anything else to contribute to their favorite secondary, tertiary, single sentence mentioned characters from the Wheel of Time, I think we can mark this episode as closed. So, thank you so much for joining us on TarValon Talks. If you have any questions or topics you'd like to talk to us about, feel free to send us an email to producer.tvt@gmail.com. Or you can join us on tarvalon.net in our general forums. We have a special thread called TarValon Talks pinned at the top of the page. Hard to miss. You can also chat with us via the tarvalon.net's Discord server in the TarValon Talks Discord channel. Once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Doll. Thank you, Dorian. See you soon.